Hello everyone, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Killer Instinct, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah and I'm your host of Killer Instinct. And before we get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss it. We also upload the video version onto YouTube on Wednesdays as well. So make sure you are subscribed. And if you're looking for more exclusive Killer Instinct content, you can always find that over on our Patreon, where we post an additional episode every Tuesday for the first 3 weeks of the month. So you get 3 additional Killer Instinct episodes for that exclusive content, and you also get an exclusive live stream at the end of the month as well, where we discuss all of the cases that we have covered on here and on the Patreon. So you can always find that link in the description box if you are looking for that. But with that all being said, let's talk about why we are here today. As you guys can tell by the title of today's episode, today we are talking about the horrific case of Madeline Soto. This is a case that I have wanted to cover for quite some time. It is a case that I have been eager to hear your opinions about, and I especially wanted to cover it now because there is a trial coming up for this case very soon. And I wanted to give us all an understanding as to where we stand in this case today prior to this trial that is coming up in the summer. This is a case that many of you may or may not have been familiar with. If you kept up with true crime in the news, you might have heard about this case. It is absolutely horrifying and incredibly, incredibly tragic. So with that being said, let's jump right on into it today. Madeline Soto was born on February 22nd, 2011 to her parents, Jennifer Soto and Tyler Wallace. Now, Maddie's father, Tyler, did not live near Madeline due to financial constraints. And so because of this, Tyler was not able to see his daughter as much as he would have liked to. However, he did keep in communication with Maddie through social media, FaceTime, and texting. He also provided financial support where he could with paying child support and also providing additional activities for Maddie, like paying for her flute lessons. The last time that Tyler saw Maddie was in October of 2023. Maddie lived at the Venetian Bay apartment complex with her mom, Jennifer, in Kissimmee, Florida. Maddie was living in this apartment with Jennifer and Jennifer's long-term boyfriend, a man named Stefan Stearns. Jennifer and Stefan began dating around 2019. The relationship seemed a little bit rocky. There were times where they did have some separation, but for the most part, they maintained together throughout all of those years. Now, Maddie was attending school at Hunters Creek Middle School, located in Orlando, Florida, and Maddie is remembered as a bright, young girl who had a lot of life left to live. Maddie was someone who brought joy to everyone around her. Her stepmom, Tatiana, described Maddie as someone who approached life with a certain resilience and optimism, and she had a laugh that lit up their home. Maddie loved music, she loved dancing, she loved art, drawing, and journaling, anything creative she absolutely loved. She was energetic, she was thoughtful, she was compassionate. Her teachers at Hunters Creek remember Maddie as being very kind-hearted. Now, in the years leading up to Maddie's death, Maddie had been diagnosed with ADHD, and she was put on medication to try and help regulate her ADHD. And according to Maddie's friends, they remember this medication that Maddie was on. It definitely had a noticeable effect on her mood. It made her very fatigued. She would be tired. She would be more sad. Her teachers remember her sleeping in class and laying her head down on desks. The side effects of this medication definitely seemed to be taking a toll on Maddie. And because of that, Maddie ended up stopping the medication that she was on in the months leading up to her murder. Now, friends of Maddie's also said that around the time of Maddie's death, Maddie would often complain about the relationship that she had with her mom, Jennifer. Maddie would refer to Jennifer as being bipolar. She said that they would get into a lot of arguments, but one person that Maddie spoke very highly of to her friends at school was her mom's boyfriend, Stefan. Friends said that Maddie and Stefan were very close. They would be seen texting each other throughout the day. Sometimes Maddie would FaceTime him while she was at school. Maddie seemed to really like Stefan and seemed to enjoy spending time with him and having him around. And according to Stefan, he definitely felt like he stepped into a father figure role for Maddie. So he says he felt like because Maddie's father, Tyler, wasn't there as frequently as Maddie needed or there as often as maybe Tyler would have liked, it definitely made him step up to the plate and step into that paternal role for her. Now, this case really begins on Monday, February 22nd of 2024. Now, in the weekend leading up to this was actually Maddie's birthday weekend. She was celebrating her 13th birthday, and she did so alongside her family and her friends at a family member's home in Central Florida. They had a great time. Maddie seemed very happy, and it just was a very wholesome and monumental point in Maddie's life. 13 is a big year, and Maddie was very excited about it. Now, that Monday, the 26th, Jennifer waited for Maddie to be let out of school that afternoon. She waited for Maddie outside in the school parking lot, as she did most days. However, to her surprise, Maddie actually never walked out of the school doors after dismissal. Now, at this point, Jennifer said that she was confused, but not overly concerned, because oftentimes Maddie would walk to her grandma's office. Maddie's grandma worked at an insurance company a few blocks down from Maddie's school, and sometimes Maddie would walk there after school to see her grandma. So Jennifer assumed that that is exactly what happened. So she drove over to the insurance company, but to her surprise, Maddie was not there either. It was at this point that Jennifer spoke to the school administration, and that is when she learned that Maddie had actually been marked absent for the entire day of school. And at this point, Jennifer spoke to school administration, and this is when she learned that Maddie had actually been marked absent from school that entire day, meaning Maddie was never at school on Monday, the 26th. And from what I have learned, school officials are supposed to call parents and inform them when their child has not made it to school, under the circumstance that the parent had not already called to explain why their child would not be attending school that day. If the student was basically a no-call, no-show that day, it would be on the teachers and the administration to contact that child's parents by the latest 3 p.m. in the afternoon when school was dismissed. I'm sure that wavers from school to school, county to county, state to state, but that was the understanding for Maddie's school in particular. But Jennifer was not made aware of the fact that her daughter was not at school that day until 5:45 p.m. And it was at that point when she learned that Maddie was absent for the entire day that she reached out to local authorities to report her daughter as missing. And it wasn't until 8:30 that same night that the deputies responded to the call. Deputies met Jennifer as well as some other friends and family, including Stefan, Jennifer's boyfriend, at the insurance office that Maddie's grandma worked at. Now, it was there that Jennifer informed authorities that Maddie again did not make it to school that day and had not been seen or heard from since the early morning hours of the 26th. Jennifer went on to say that Maddie did have a cell phone. However, on that particular day, Maddie left her cell phone at home, which was sometimes not incredibly unusual because according to Jennifer, with Maddie's ADHD, she did have a tendency to forget things a lot. So her leaving the phone at home wasn't incredibly unusual. But what that meant was that no one had any way of getting in touch with Maddie. Now, Jennifer did say that Maddie was last seen earlier that morning at the church, which was located right next to Hunters Creek Middle School. Now, this is when Stefan jumped into the conversation, and he told police that it was actually him that took Maddie to school earlier that morning. According According to Stefan, he said it wasn't every day that he took Maddie to school. However, he did on this specific morning. According to him, he said that he dropped Maddie off about a block away from where her school actually was at approximately 8:30 a.m. He said that he dropped her off right across the street from the church. And when asked what Maddie was last seen wearing, Stefan said that when he said goodbye to Maddie, she was wearing a hoodie, white Crocs, and black pants. But this is when Jennifer quickly jumped in and said that Maddie was not wearing black pants, but she was actually wearing black shorts. And I say that because it comes into play later. So remember that. Now, according to Stefan, he said that the reason that he dropped Maddie a block away from school and not directly at the school was because Maddie did not want to be seen in Stefan's car. Stefan and Jennifer said that Maddie was going through a phase where she didn't want to be seen around her parents and she thought it was uncool, and she didn't want to be seen in Stefan's 2010 Lincoln car. And according to Stefan, he said that he wasn't going to fight her on it, he wasn't going to disagree with her, and he was going to do what she wanted. So he agreed to drop her off a block away from the school so Maddie could walk to school herself. Now, when getting more specific with his timeline, Stefan said that he woke up at approximately 7 o'clock in the morning on the 26th, that him and Maddie left the house around 7:30, 7:45. He said that before they left, they had talked about stopping off at McDonald's to get breakfast. However, Maddie wasn't interested in breakfast by the time they actually were nearing the restaurant. Stefan said that Maddie was actually sleeping the majority of the car ride, and so when they were nearing the McDonald's, Stefan woke Maddie up, asked her if she wanted anything to eat. However, she said that she didn't want breakfast anymore, so they continued driving to school, where Stefan dropped her off across the street from the church at 8:30 in the morning. Stefan said that while he was driving away, he looked in the rearview mirror and watched as Maddie was walking in the direction of the school while simultaneously going through her backpack. So with this information, police took this and began an intense search to try and find Maddie. Police brought in search dogs. They brought in many volunteer groups that were formed to search throughout the areas around Hunters Creek Middle School, as well as near the church, because according to police, with the information that they've been given, the church is the last place, or the area surrounding the church is the last place where Maddie was seen. Police did also look into Maddie's cell phone that she left behind on the morning of the 26th, where they saw messages that Maddie had written to friends of hers. Now, in these messages, these text messages that Maddie was writing, Maddie told her friends that when she turned 13 years old, she had plans to run away and go off and live in the woods. Now, considering these text messages and the fact that Maddie's 13th birthday was only days prior to her disappearance, it made police question if Maddie had run away on her own. It didn't seem out of the realm of possibility that Maddie would get dropped off a block away from school and just not go in that day. If she had plans to run away, it seemed like she could have done it if she wanted to. She left her cell phone at home, she didn't walk into school that day, and she had talked to her friends about the desire that she had to run away. So again, it didn't seem completely outlandish to believe that that might have been the case. But the likelihood of that theory began to diminish when police took a closer look at Stefan's story as to what he said happened leading up to dropping off Maddie. They took a closer look at his timeline, a closer look at the details of the timeline, and police specifically looked at the surveillance footage because there was plenty of surveillance footage from the surrounding areas that Stefan was driving through, and the surveillance footage really began poking holes into Stefan's story. Now, one of the first things that police discovered was this footage from the church parking lot. Now, it showed that on the morning of the 26th, there was someone who did appear to be a teenager walking through the parking lot at approximately 8:40 a.m. And initially, police wondered if this could have been Maddie. The timeline seemed to match. It was a younger looking person walking through the parking lot. However, the footage was blurry and it wasn't clear enough to be able to identify if this were Maddie. But what did completely rule this specific sighting out was when police noticed that the car that dropped this person off in the church parking lot, it was a dark SUV. So this was not Stefan's silver Lincoln. So it just so happened that someone else was dropped off in the church parking lot around the same time. But police were able to rule out the possibility of this being Maddie because of the color car that this person got out of. Now, police were able to see that Stefan's car was seen driving towards Hunter Creek Middle School around the time that he mentioned at 8:30 a.m. However, when it came time to make a turn towards the street that he claimed to have dropped Maddie off at, Stefan actually took a turn in the opposite direction, so going away from the area that he claimed to have stopped at. So he's driving in the complete opposite way. Now, police did ask Stefan about this, to which he claimed that he forgot to mention to authorities that he had to turn around. He made a trip back to the apartment after he forgot his gate clicker for the apartment. So he's driven all of this way, he's about to make his turn, but then he realizes that he forgot his gate clicker. So naturally, he decides to turn around and drive all the way back to the apartment to get this gate clicker. Now, luckily, police were able to track Stefan's movements through CCTV footage throughout the rest of the day, throughout the remainder of the day on the 26th, really to confirm his whereabouts and see exactly where he went throughout the day. And when they did this, they were able to see that after making that turn away from the school, when Stefan claimed that he was going back to the apartment to get the gate clicker, Stefan made several stops along the way. The first place that he stopped off at was a vape shop. He said that he noticed that the vape shop was not yet opened, so that is when he drove back to the apartment, stayed there for a short period of time, then got back into his car, drove back to the vape shop, which at this point was opened, and then drove to a gaming store called House Rules. Stefan then said that sometime between 12 and 2 p.m. he got a flat tire, so he pulled over onto US 192, which is a very rural road. US 192 is known as a highway, but it's not a traditional highway. Do not think 5-lane highway, high trafficking highway. Think more so a 2-lane highway in a very rural area. So there were not a lot of people out there, not a lot of cars driving by. It was definitely a more secluded road. And even though Stefan was able to tell authorities that that is where he was not able to tell police where exactly on the road that he stopped to change his tire. But that was not all the police discovered regarding Stefan's routes that he took on the 26th. Police discovered that prior to all of this, before leaving to take Maddie to school that morning, so Stefan claims, at 7:30 in the morning, Stefan is actually seen on security camera footage driving out to the apartment complex dumpsters and throwing different items away in the dumpsters. Now, luckily, police were able to track down where the garbage trucks had sent the items that were inside of the specific dumpster. And when police searched through the garbage, they were able to discover the white trash bag that Stefan threw away. And inside of it was Maddie's backpack and school laptop. Now, police took a very close look at the specific security camera footage from when Stefan drove his car to the dumpster and then drove back towards his apartment. And when they did, the footage that police collected, it showed that Stefan was not in the car alone. Through this footage, police could see that there was another person sitting in Stefan's car in the passenger seat. And this is who police believe was Maddie. Now, police are confident in this surveillance footage that Maddie was already dead at this time. They believe that Stefan had propped Maddie's body up in the car to make it appear that she was sitting next to him in his vehicle. Now, according to police, they said that it was very clear to them just by looking at this footage that Maddie was not alive. They claim that Maddie was slumped over in a position that was not normal for that of someone who was alive at that point. Now, along with that, police were also able to capture Stefan's car almost an hour after dropping off the items in the dumpster, and they watched as his car drove to a parking garage at a Holiday Inn hotel. They were able to trace his car through surveillance footage, through stoplight footage, through all of that. So they traced his car to this Holiday Inn hotel, and he drove into the parking garage. And the security cameras inside of the parking garage, they show Stefan getting out of the driver's seat, walking over to the passenger seat, picking up who police believe was Maddie, and placing her in the trunk of his car before driving away. After moving the body to the trunk of the car, Stefan's car was then captured driving towards Highway 192, where he claimed to have changed his flat tire, and then by 4:40 p.m., he arrived back at the apartment complex. And when he did this is when police's suspicions of Stefan were officially confirmed. Police discovered that on the day that Maddie went missing, Stefan had factory reset his phone, not just once, but twice. And he did this in an attempt to erase everything on his phone. However, what Stefan did not take into account was the fact that authorities were able to get into his Google Drive and his iCloud. When doing this, they were able to uncover over 1,700 sexually explicit photos and videos of Maddie that Stefan had been hoarding all the way back from 2020. Most of these images had notable features of Stefan in them, making no mistake that he was the one in these pictures and taking these pictures and videos. And because of this, obviously, just with this alone, this was enough for police to arrest Stefan on the night of February 28th, 2024, and he was charged with over 60 counts, all relating to sexual abuse. Then, the next day, on March 1st, 2024, police also received a tip from someone who claimed that they had spotted Stefan changing his tire in an area of Hickory Tree Road. Obviously, at this point, everyone in the surrounding areas, really everyone in the nation, had become aware of Maddie's case. This case received a lot of attention in the media, and once Maddie's name and word of her disappearance started to spread, people were calling in to the police department with many tips relating to her disappearance. And this one in particular was from someone who claimed that they had seen Stefan changing his tire in the area of Hickory Tree Road. And this was informative to authorities because, again, they knew that Stefan was on Highway 192, but they did not know exactly where he stopped to change his tire because, according to Stefan, he said that he did not remember. So this gave police a specific area to go and search, and that is exactly what they did. Police drove out to Hickory Tree Road, and they noticed that there was a field on Hickory Tree Road that was protected by a locked gate. Now, because of this, police had to get in contact with the owner of this field and of this property and piece of land and ask for permission to search the property, which police were given. And according to this witness claimed that Stefan was across the street from this field when he was changing his tire. So that is why police believed that this field could be very significant to this case. So the landowner gave authorities permission to go on to the field and search. And when they did that, police began walking through the area, and one of the first things that they noticed was a long line of bamboo trees. Just a few feet into this line of bamboo trees, authorities discovered a pair of blue jeans. And as they walked closer, they noticed a body covered in dried grass and hay. And just from first glance, when they uncovered the body, police could confirm that they had found Maddie. Maddie's autopsy revealed that she had been strangled to death. The medical examiner noted that her hyoid bone, which is a bone associated with strangulation injuries, was not intact. and the manner of Maddie's death was a homicide. Now, I do want to take a moment here and talk about Jennifer, Maddie's mom, because I don't think that we have talked about her or really mentioned her enough leading up until this point, because there is a lot of chatter surrounding Jennifer. There is a lot of people who have a lot of opinions, strong opinions, and in my opinion, rightfully so, regarding Jennifer and her knowledge as to what was going on inside the four walls of her home. Now, if I have not painted this picture clearly enough for you, allow me to say this very bluntly. Based off of the evidence that police have collected, it is very clear and it has been confirmed that Maddie was being sexually abused by Stefan for years leading up to her murder. Now, police had multiple conversations with Jennifer, and through speaking with Jennifer, police were able to get a better understanding regarding the environment that Maddie was living in, what really the structure of this household was, and how Maddie was living with Jennifer and Stefan. Now, one of the things that Jennifer had disclosed to authorities is that her daughter, and Stefan all slept in the same bed, and Maddie slept in the middle. So Stefan, Maddie, and Jennifer all shared a bed. Maddie was sleeping in the middle between her mom and her mom's boyfriend. Jennifer said that oftentimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and she would look over and see Jennifer and Stefan cuddling. She said it wasn't necessarily big spoon, little spoon, but it was Stefan laying on his back with his arm over Maddie and Maddie resting her head on Stefan's chest. And according to Jennifer, she said she really didn't think much of it. She thought it was quite normal. She considered it sweet, and she thought that there was nothing wrong with it. Jennifer also said that regarding the attire that everyone wore to bed, she said that typically she wore her everyday clothes to bed. She said that she didn't own any pajamas. She just wore her everyday clothes to bed. Stefan would often either wear pants or his boxers and a t-shirt, and Maddie would wear an oversized t-shirt and shorts to bed as well. Jennifer also went on to say that over time, she actually began sleeping on the couch. She said that once she had changed jobs, she needed a better sleeping schedule, and she hadn't been sleeping as well in the bed with her boyfriend and her daughter, so she moved to the couch, leaving Stefan and Maddie to have the bed to themselves. Now again, when Jennifer is talking about this, she is doing so in a way that is very nonchalant. She is doing it in a way that seems very blasé. It seems very much that she thought, or at least is pretending to think, that all of this was normal. However, police were very quick to tell her that that was not the case. Now, there was also a major inconsistency regarding Jennifer's story. As I told you in the beginning, when Jennifer was first reporting to police that Maddie was missing, she quickly jumped in after Stefan said that Maddie was last seen wearing black pants, and she corrected Stefan and said that Maddie was seen wearing black shorts that morning. However, Jennifer then revealed later on in a news interview that she actually did not see Maddie that morning at all. She only heard her getting ready for school. But then later on the line, she changed her story for a third time, saying that she woke up around 7 a.m. She heard Stefan taking the dogs for a walk, but she did not hear Maddie at all. The reason that this is important is because it completely discredits what Jennifer had officially stated, which is that her daughter was wearing black shorts, when in reality, Jennifer did not see her daughter at all that morning. Therefore, she would not know what Maddie was wearing in her final hours and what she wore to supposedly go to school in that day. Jennifer said that she did not hear Maddie in the house at all that morning, and she left for an appointment at approximately 9:30 in the morning. Now, I do not know how this apartment is structured. I don't know how many bedrooms are in this apartment, but I find it a little difficult to believe that if Jennifer was getting ready to go to an appointment at 9:30, she would have to go to her closet. She would have to get changed. Maybe she took a shower before she left. And if Maddie typically sleeps in their room, in their bed, why wouldn't Jennifer had seen Maddie that morning? Why wouldn't she have questioned where Maddie was? Or did she see Maddie that morning? Just a couple questions for you. Now, when detectives confronted Jennifer with all the information they had against Stefan, meaning all of the photos that they had obtained from his iCloud, the videos that they had, Jennifer denied being able to identify the people in the photographs and denied knowing anything regarding the pictures. And she said that she did not recognize them at all. Jennifer did state stay adamant for quite some time that she did not know anything about the abuse that Maddie was enduring. She claimed that she was not aware of everything that was going on, and even after Maddie went missing, she did not believe that Stefan did anything to Maddie. Now, there is interrogation footage out there of Jennifer talking to detectives, and in this interrogation, Jennifer switches her tune again and states that this time she understands that her daughter was being sexually assaulted. She sees the pictures, she sees that it's Stefan, she sees that it's her daughter, and the way in which she talks about this truly is way too nonchalant, or it should be, for anyone's liking. She said that when she looked at the picture, even though she was able to recognize that it was Stefan and it was her daughter, and that means that her daughter was being sexually abused by her boyfriend, she still didn't think that that meant that Stefan murdered Maddie. Those two, the dots were not connecting to her at the time, so she says. Now, this interrogation with authorities happened 3 days prior to Maddie being discovered, but when Jennifer sat down with authorities for this interview, detectives noted that all throughout this conversation, which was about 2 hours long, Jennifer only referred to Maddie in the past tense, which raises the question of, did she already know that her daughter was dead? Now, because of all of the evidence against Stefan was indicted on first-degree murder charges for the murder of Maddie Soto. Stefan's trial, as I mentioned, is coming up soon. It is almost underway. The trial will be something that we watch closely, very closely. And as of now, the defense is trying to get all of the evidence against Stefan regarding his cell phone and the Google Drive, all of the pictures and videos. The defense is trying to get that thrown out, and their argument for this was that there was no warrant to seize Stefan's phone. And they're trying to say that authorities had collected his phone without a warrant, even though detectives stated, and it is on body cam footage, that they did get verbal consent from Stefan to go through his phone. Now, as of now, the decision on whether or not the prosecution will be able to bring up this evidence against Stefan, this will be decided on June 30th. So we will know on June 30th if this evidence is allowed in trial. And right now the trial is set to begin on July 14th of this year. So again, this is one that we will be watching very closely. I'm sure more details will arise as we near the trial and as the trial begins. I'm very curious to know if you guys believe that Jennifer should also be charged in her daughter's murder. I'm very curious to know your thoughts on that and what you believe Jennifer knew. Do you think she knew everything? Do you think she turned a blind eye? Do you think she was a participant in this? I'm just curious to know what you think regarding her involvement in her daughter's death. Do you think she went to school that day to pick up her daughter already knowing that Maddie was not walking out that door that day? Let me know in the comments below. But with that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Killer Instinct. Again, if you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah and I am your host. Again, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Wednesday. You are not going to want to miss it. We also upload the video version onto YouTube on Wednesdays as well. And as always, you can find the link for our exclusive Killer Instinct content in the description box below. I will be back next week with a brand new one for you guys. And until then, stay safe. Bye, guys.